All right, we will reconvene the 152nd meeting of the Massachusetts Gaming Commission at about 1 o'clock. We have some changes in our order of our schedule. We'll start out with General Counsel Blue on the legal department.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
The first item on our list for the legal division is the exemption delegation. And I think, if you recall at our meeting last time, we discussed the delegation of authority to the IEB to grant petitions for exemptions from non-gaming vendor licensing and registration requirements under the catch-all provision, which is called 6N. And that's an exemption when it's in the public interest. Commissioner McHugh requested that we put something in writing. In your package is a memo requesting the delegation and explaining the purpose of the delegation. We think this will be helpful because it will, it'll free up a little bit more of the IEB's time. It'll also create less of a process for bringing these in front of the full commission for review. We don't know how many of these that we'll see. The legal department will help the IEB in monitoring these, but we think that there should be, enough of them that this will be very helpful.
Comments?
Yeah, I think having the director have the discretion to grant that waiver would be a major help for Director Wells in her ability to manage a lot of what she has on her plate in terms of workload and priorities, slippage of qualifiers and things like that. So I'm all in favor of this. I mean, I was last time. I know Commissioner McHugh was, and now he's not here, but he wanted to see it in writing, and I think the memo here explains it really well.
Can you give an example of what such a thing might be?
So what has come up, if, for example, is an entity that wishes to put advertising in the casino as opposed to the casino buying advertising. We have, I think it's 13 exemptions in this section, 12 of which are very specific, one of which is for advertising.
Right.
But it is drafted in such a way that it assumes the casino is buying advertising. Well, people who want to put advertising, say, in the racing program, it doesn't necessarily make sense to license them as a non-gaming vendor. So they could fall under this section. The IEB could approve it.
Right. Okay.
I'm sure, as you say in the memo, legal will work concurrently to make sure there's sound decisions.
We will.
And if there's always any doubt, it comes right back here, right? I mean, that's the whole point.
That's right. If there were a question that we were uncomfortable with, we would bring the petition to the commission.
Right.
Do we have a defined form or requirements for what the petition needs to look like?
We don't. We'll take it in a letter.
Okay.
Some of these, I would imagine some of these will be small type businesses, and I don't want them to be sort of caught up in a form, but as long as they can explain in a letter to us what they're doing and what they need, that'll be fine.
Excuse me, you wanted to know when Plainridge returned? Steve is here. Is that who you're talking about?
No, I was talking about the architects.
Okay. Okay, excuse me. Any other thoughts, questions?
No, I think this will help expedite the process, and to our general counsel's point, just kind of folks who are providing services that are kind of in that category of businesses anyways, to kind of quickly move through the process and not hold our licensee up.
You want to move to that effect?
Mr. Chair, I move that the commission delegate to the director of IEB the authority to accept and grant or deny a petition for exemption under 205 CMR 13404 subsection 6N from the non-gaming vendor registration requirements under 205 CMR 134.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it unanimously.
Thank you. The next item in your package is a policy. The policy is entitled the Review of Executive Session Minutes. The purpose of this policy is that, and all commissions and agencies that operate under the open meeting law need to have a policy like this. Basically, what this is this provides a process for the regular review of any minutes that are taken in an executive session, and then delegates to the general counsel the authority to review those minutes and determine whether they should be released. Now, if you look at the statute, the first 2 paragraphs in the policy basically follow the statute. The open meeting law statute requires that executive session minutes can be kept confidential until such time as the need for the executive session disappears. And that's really what I will be evaluating for executive session minutes. So to the extent that if it's investigatory, for example, to the extent that the investigation has been completed and determined, then it might be the time to release those minutes. But the open meeting law contemplates that at some point, for almost all executive session minutes, they will become public like other minutes. So this sets up the policy. The idea would be that I would review any executive session minutes quarterly. I would determine whether anything needed to be redacted. I would consult with the appropriate other parties, if there are other parties, to determine whether they still had ongoing issues. And then I would prepare them to be made public, and we would post them along with our other minutes.
So for an example, if the issue in executive session was investigative in nature, you'd check to make sure there was no issue with the case still pending, or that could reveal something that you wouldn't want revealed before a case is adjudicated. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct. And I would also check, for example, if other law enforcement agencies were involved, I would run it by them as well to make sure that we weren't doing anything that impacted their investigation.
Okay.
And then I'll file a report. I'll come to the commission and report on what I've released.
Is this just prophylactic, or have we had requests?
We have not had requests, but we think this is important to have in place.
Yeah, I agree. Other comments? Somebody want to, do we need to vote on this? I guess
Yes.
not. We do? Okay.
Yes, we'll put this with the rest of our policies.
Commissioner Stebbins?
Mr. Chair, I move that the commission adopt the policy relative to minutes of executive sessions of the commission as prescribed in the memo in the packet.
Second?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it unanimously.
Thank you. And then finally, we have the amended small business impact statement for Regulation 205 CMR 14. Now, this is a racing regulation. It came before the commission a very long time ago, particularly because the racing regulations have to go to the legislature, and this one has gone through. This was part of the regulations that we did, or in conjunction with the Racehorse Development Fund regulations. And this Section 14 gives the commission a little bit more flexibility in terms of licensing, in terms of dates, in terms of requiring when bonds come in and checks are paid and things like that. We didn't put a copy of that regulation in your packet, but we did provide one here today. It has been approved. It has gone through the legislative process. Now, by having the amended small business impact statement, we will file it for final promulgation. So that's where we are. But it has been a very long time since you've seen it. And there are no changes in it since you last reviewed it.
Questions, comments? We need a motion on this too, right?
Yes.
Mr. Stebbins?
Sure. Mr. Chairman, I move that the commission approve the amended small business impact statement relative to proposed new regulations in 205 CMR 14, supplemental license procedures.
Second?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it unanimously.
Thank you. That concludes legal's presentation.
Are you going to talk about the letter?
Yes, with Executive Director
Okay,
Day as
okay.
part of his.
Thank you.
If we could have the Penn representatives come up front.
So we're now on to item 6.
If you could take a look at item 6A, tab. As we're getting seated, at the commission's last meeting, we presented a report comparing the RFA 2 proposal to the final floor plan that we received from our architect, and concluded that the attached plans are generally consistent with and reflecting a similar quality of the design included in the RFA 2 application. What we have today is we have joining us Jack RAUEN from Penn, Mike McGrew, VP for Construction, Darlene Whitmore, the project architect, and Dane from Pink & Company, Dane Wigfall. What we want to do is have some additional facts presented to the commission to share that with you the areas that you specifically are interested in according to our regulation. The areas will focus on taking into consideration some of the list that's included in CMR 205-151. And from the ongoing construction, and those areas are sensitive, will not be part of the presentation. Following their presentation, we are requesting that the commission accept Ray Porfilio's recommendations and conclusions. So that's the architect the last time, and it's the memorandums included in the packet. And he has 2 recommendations and a conclusion at the end of that memorandum that hopefully you'll have enough information at that point to approve the floor plan pending final inspection and delegate to Commissioner Cameron the authority to approve remaining areas of the floor plan based on the site final inspection by MGC staff. So that's kind of what we're here for and what we hope to, and I know I'd like to have Council Blue add a little comment. Thank you.
So before we consider the Plainridge floor plan today, I wanted to update the commission on a matter that arose late yesterday. Late in the day yesterday, we received a letter from the council for the Mashpee Wampanoag tribe expressing concerns that they had about the commission's regulation 205 CMR 143, and that is the regulation that pertains to slot machines. Their concern is regarding slot machines, allowed gaming positions, and the definitions of electronic table games. We are reviewing their letter. We have not reviewed it entirely. They also sent this letter to the Attorney General's office, and they asked the Attorney General's office to review the Commission's regulation on these issues. I've spoke to the Attorney General's office yesterday, and I let them know that we look forward to working collaboratively with them and to answering any questions they have about our regulation. I also explained to the Attorney General's office that the purpose of the Commission's review of the floor plan today was not about that regulation. It was, in fact, about the floor plan and about our pre-opening certification process and the compliance with that regulation. I further assured the Attorney General's office that the Commission's review and possible approval of the floor plan did not and would not prejudice any matters that the tribe had regarding the regulation, and that it would not impact any of those discussions that we would have with the Attorney General's office. I know that the letter will be posted so that we can have that conversation, and we will also meet with the Attorney General's office promptly to discuss any concerns or questions that they have.
I just had a chance to read it this morning, since we just got it yesterday afternoon, and I agree with you obviously completely that, first of all, it doesn't have relevance to what we're doing here today. 2 is that we will, of course, collaborate completely with the Attorney General in taking a look at this. But also, just for the record, we've discussed this at a very robust, very public, very rigorous conversation. We had an extended period of time for public comment. This was done more than a year ago, or about a year ago. And as with all our regs, we go through a very careful, thorough legal review and analysis within the context of the broad authority the legislature gave us to interpret and implement that law. Having said that, as I said, we'd be completely collaborative with the AG to look into this, but for the record, it's pretty clear that there was a long and rigorous comment period a long time ago, and as usual, we operate under a very strict and rigorous legal review of our own.
I couldn't agree more. And my recollection is that there were a series of discussions, not just one meeting, and the normal review of the promulgation of regulations. We had a number of, and now our legal team has to go back and search those times and meetings, and they do a good job at all of that, which is commendable. But there were, more than a couple of lengthy discussions and analyses and documents that we considered.
And if I remember correctly, one of the significant data points in that long conversation was that nobody objected to it. But okay, so thank you for that sidebar.
Chairman and members of the Commission, also the process of the approval of the floor plan and its consideration and ultimately the final inspection, that's all part of the operation certificate approval that the commission will hopefully be able to grant as we get toward the end of June. With that, I turn this over to Jack and his team.
Okay. Thank you, Rick. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Jack.
Always a pleasure to come here and speak with you about our project. Before I turn the conversation over to Michael and Darlene, I wanted to make just a couple of brief comments on the report of Ray Porfilio, the consulting architect. We take note of and certainly agree with some of the more significant comments in that report, specifically that the plan is unchanged from that which we put forth in the RFA2. That was always our goal. The program is appropriate for its intended uses. We certainly believe that. And the finishes and the quality are appropriate and consistent with the RFA2. We were glad to see him draw those conclusions because those were three big things on our objectives. Also, we're very pleased that he's recommending to you today to approve our floor plan as consistent with the RFA2. Finally, this is our second opportunity to work with Ray. He is thorough, diligent, carries out his charge very well, and we appreciate his efforts and the conclusions that he drew. So, and with that, I'll turn it over to Michael and Darlene to go through the floor plan.
Thank you, Commissioners. I appreciate the opportunity to present this to you again and give some clarifications to some areas on the floor plan and get a little more detail. The first slide that we're going to look at is the overall floor plan. This is basically to give you orientation again to the site. I know you're very familiar with the site, but Rick, do we have the pointer, please? Do you by chance have that? Might help.
Rick's got his.
There we go. To give you the overall orientation again, basically this plan shows the overall first level of the facility. This is the existing racing building. This is the new portion of the casino that was constructed, and then this is the parking structure with the valet entrance here, also an entrance here, and an entrance from the garage. We can go on to the next slide, which shows more in detail. This also, starting with the entrance into the facility, basically three major entrances. Entrance from the garage here. One of the things I want to point out at each one of these entrances is the security podium, which is located right at each entry for carting and entrance into the facility. We have the main entry here of the valet, also then the security podium there. We have the racing entry on this side, which allows people to go to live racing this direction and then also come up to the casino. And our security point there is right as you enter to the casino floor at the top of the ramp. The other elements on this drawing and blow up to help you understand are the kiosk locations. We have a lottery kiosk throughout the facility. We tried to point them out in various, scattered throughout the facility in locations where easy access. Another area we want to point out is the local artist display. We have met with her. We've looked at this location where 85% of our customers come through, Paula DeSimone, and that will be the location for her display. And then we have Artists of the Future display, which will be on the racing side and be on the location as soon as you enter on the left on the racing facility.
Will that be, that's a display that will turn over from time to time?
Yes,
Yeah.
Annually it'll be turned over. There'll be a program, and the program will still be developed in the future. But the nice thing about that is it's in a location where the minors can get into, because that building, you're not carded over 21 until you get into the casino.
Right.
So the program could be any age level of program.
Right.
We can go to the next slide.
Actually, can we?
Anybody got any questions? on this
Yeah,
one?
I do. I'm assuming all of the lottery kiosk and keno locations are consistent with Penn's agreement with Mass Lottery.
Oh, one other thing I'd like to point out is the GameSense location. And actually, if we go to the next slide, I believe.
I was going to finish up on this one, too.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I just wanted to point out, sort of for the record, that there are 7 lottery kiosks, and that was being worked out with the lottery in answer to that question. And this is all apropos of the mandate in the law that we do everything we can in collaboration with our licensees to protect lottery revenues. So I think having 7 kiosks there well-positioned is a great part of that.
Thank you. Any more questions?
Mike, just for clarification, as everybody nodded, but a question from Commissioner Stebbins was, are those lottery machines and placements in compliance with your agreement with the lottery?
My knowledge, yes. They've been working that out with Lance in the operations of locations. We've actually, Darlene has worked very closely with him on locating placement.
Thank you.
Yeah, the agreement itself says prominent places.
Right.
So it's not specific, the agreement itself.
And we put them in, the entryways prominently on the casino floor and in the food venues.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're going to be actually, it appears to be able to
And recent.
play Keno while you're sitting at
Fluties,
the Flutie's bar or
yes.
area seating. Good.
Yes. The, on this plan as well, the GameSense location is right where you come in, entering from the garage, where 85% of our patrons will come in. We think it's a very good location. We've met with them, went over their program, and as you'll see in some later slides, a bigger blow-up of that in detail of where that location is in the layout. We can go to the next slide. This next slide basically blows up the gaming area. To define the gaming area, we put a red line around the total gaming floor to show that where the actual gaming floor goes all the way around the facility. It's kind of a line that just follows the path where it's out of the restaurants and so forth, where all the gaming devices are. Also wanted to show that at every major entry point, we have security at these key locations to also, ensure that before anybody enters the gaming floor that they have been properly identified and carded.
I was at first puzzled by what these little red dots were, but I guess they're the lottery. They're the lottery kiosks, but you're missing some of them.
This slide just represents the gaming area. We couldn't get the other stuff to white out, so this is just the gaming area for this slide. The previous slide is the one that just shows where the lottery terminals
there are
are.
a bunch of little red dots on this one
Right,
too, and I couldn't
yeah.
figure out what they were, but
The red dots are the gaming.
Yeah.
Are the lottery terminals, yes. And some of those are not on the gaming floor. Some of them are in the entryways.
oh, I see. That's why they're
Yeah,
not.
right.
Well, no, there's whatever. All right.
Yeah.
I realize that this question may be for Lance or maybe for even later, but have you determined the hours of operations of the food and entertainment venues at this point?
Yes, they have. I'm not privy to that. They, obviously that's operations side.
Yep.
I think it is a good question for Lance.
Yeah, that would be a good question for him. We can go to the next slide if we're done with questions on this one. This is the entry from the garage, and as you can see here, this is the GameSense area. We have a floor layout where we have, based on the program elements that we discussed in our meetings, they have a nice inviting entry to come in, kind of open, and then they also have an area in the back that if they need to sit down and talk with anyone, they can talk in the back area. Very comfortable, and has their GameSense kiosk located here, and there's also a GameSense kiosk located over at the entry of the casino by the racing area.
Am I looking at this, are we expecting the only access to that back area, which I guess is an EMT space, is through the GameSense space?
Yes.
Yes.
So I need medical attention, I'm going through the GameSense space?
They will, this is where they'll house their equipment, and then they'll be out on the floor. They would have to go through the GameSense space to get to that access. And this location was worked out with the Plainville Fire Department.
Mark has reviewed this as well, so presumably, I agree, that looks a little bit funny. I mean,
Yeah.
the EMT has to go through something to get there.
Right.
But I assume Mark must have reviewed that.
Okay.
The next slide goes back to the entertainment venues. Same as we had presented before, we have Revolutions, which is the bar stage area in this area. We have the food court, made up of 3 venues, the Bean, the Slice, and Be Good. We have Fluties Sports Pub, and then we have the Slacks Oyster Bar and Grill, which is located in the racing building. Any questions here?
Nope.
Okay, go to the next slide. This here is an overall floor plan of the upper floor level. Basically, this is the multipurpose room, and then this is the simulcast area over here. The next slide actually shows a better blow-up of the gaming area, racing gaming area. So we can go to the next slide, which gives you better detail. This is on the first level, live racing. And then this is the simulcast on the second level. The main entry for the live racing, as soon as you come in that main entry, you go directly into there. Track is on this, orientated on this side, and then the simulcast is on the second level on the east side.
That north entry on the top left of that drawing is that entry that if you went the other way, you went to that route.
Yeah, if you
corridor
go,
up to
The
the
corridor
casino.
up to the casino, right?
yeah, when you go right, you go up to the casino. When
Yeah.
you go left,
You
you
go
go
left,
into
you
the
come to
live
the-
racing. Very opening, inviting space. It's, the way we tried to do the walkway is we made it real wide at the entry and then narrowed down into the casino, which is very inviting and open. Okay, the next slides that you'll be seeing are from the interior finishes, and I'll let,
Make one comment, Mike. You know, Commissioner Stebbins, no matter how many times we look at these plans, you always come up with something. And I never noticed that you have to go through GameSense, or there would be traffic from EMT through GameSense. Not sure at this late juncture if we can do anything about it, but that warrants a look.
Okay.
Let us
And
take a
it-
look and make sure that's not disruptive and, you know, what type of activity there will be in EMT and if we have any other options.
Okay. I appreciate that. Thanks, John.
Sorry, Michael.
that's okay. We can go to the next slide, which will show you some photographs that Darlene can comment on relative to our finishes.
Good afternoon.
Afternoon.
Sunday, this is, as of Sunday, the progress that we have made in construction that will show you an image of, the imagery of what's happening with our concept and design that has been actually built. And this view is as you're coming in from the parking garage entry, and we have, well, actually, I'm sorry, it's a view from Flutie's towards the parking garage entry. And you see the feature, illuminated feature columns that have this stone, the dark sparkly stone, cladding them, and a zebra wood finish on the stepping wood ceiling elements, and the water is reflected into the carpet. So those are the materials that we used in the concept in our RFA, built form. So if you go to the next slide.
Before you do that, I'm just curious, what is that element on the left? There's a slot machine on the left, and then there's something right next to it if you continue down the
Kiosk.
corridor. Oh, is that a kiosk?
Kiosk of some sort.
This is,
Yes.
they're in the process of installing the game, so that's just a slot machine. It hasn't been placed
Slot
yet.
machine sitting on the floor.
It's sitting on the floor. These are the bases, and these are the slot machines, and this slot machine is just sitting there, but, you know, there's a bunch of bases over here. They haven't set the machine yet, so they're in the process of building and setting the machines at the same time.
Good.
Yeah, I can't tell what that other piece is as you go down the walkway carpet further down by that other bank of slots, but I'm sure it's some type of construction material.
Some cardboard or something.
Yes, it's a box.
Probably not there
Yeah.
now.
Well, it looks like there's been so much progress that it tickled my
Right, it
brain
has
here.
been.
It's just trying
And
to
as you
figure
can see, we have the metal chandeliers installed also.
Yep.
One of them, the last one was going in yesterday in that area, last night. So if you can go to the next slide. This is Revolution 1776, and it's from the bar looking towards Flutie's. You can see Flutie's is the same zebra wood elements from the ceiling. As you're coming into the facility, we've used that same material at Flutie's. And these are the museum-style cases that I discussed the last meeting, where Flutie's uniforms from his various career will be displayed in these cases right here. And these are the clouds, we call them, and that's just an element in the ceiling for acoustics, and we have lights up here, and this is the stage. So that's a view from the bar. So as you can see, it's a very open plan. No matter where you stand, you can look around and see pretty much the whole casino, and you'll know where you're going to be. So if you go to the next slide. This is a view from the food court. You can see Revolution 1776 is here. This is the food court. You're looking towards the main entry. And these are the illuminated feature columns as you're entering the facility here. And we also have the same elements coming in from the porte-cochere entry. And if you go to the next slide, this is in the food court looking towards Revolution 1776. So you can see it's a circular stage platform. These are going to be illuminated, light-changing elements around the bar. And this in the cardboard is a metal railing. It's really pretty, though you can't see it in this picture. So, and if you go to the next slide, this is coming in from the main, from the parking garage entry looking towards Flutie's. So we have the illuminated columns, and this is this beautiful zebra wood ceiling elements, very highly reflective, and the stone on the sides of the columns, and you're looking towards Flutie's, which is also the same stone that's in the columns at the portal where the Heisman Trophy display case will be, at the main entry. Next slide. I think that might be it. That's it. Okay. Ed, does anyone have any questions?
Any more questions or comments?
It looks like there's been a lot of progress.
The building has taken on life and energy, and between the interior design elements and the slot machines themselves, it's a beautiful place.
Sure looks like it.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we need to do anything? Do we need to accept this? Right.
I'm hoping that the commission would accept the architect's recommendations and conclusion and approve the floor plans, and hopefully delegate to Commissioner Cameron finally.
Mr. Stebbins, we're going with you today.
Wow. Mr. Chair, I ask that do we want to include some type of acknowledgement or incorporation of the memo from our consultants as well?
Yes, and it is included in the packet as well.
Okay.
Yes.
Mr. Chairman, I ask that the commission give approval to the prescribed gaming floor of Plainridge Park and the elements included in the packet, including the memo and recommendations from Ray Porfilio and Epstein Joslin Architects, Inc.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it unanimously.
There was another request for a motion in there that I'll be happy to make, if that's okay, Mr. Chairman, that the commission delegate to Commissioner Cameron any tweaks or changes as they evolve from the implementation of this plan.
Tweaks or changes? Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. Commissioner Cameron, I think, recused herself from that vote.
Thank you very much.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
thank you very much.
Thank you.
It's coming along.
Not for a while. Yeah, I was planning on it, and I couldn't. What's next?
Waiting for Grossman to join me. And the next item is tab B, training assistance emergency regulation. Thoughts coming up. What you have under that tab is staff is recommending an amendment to CMR 13403 by adding paragraph 2 that allows Plainridge Park Casino to utilize employees from other Penn or affiliated properties to assist and train their new employees during pre-opening and for a short period after opening. And that's provided there are some conditions. PCP must identify personnel in advance. It must provide an ID that is distinguishable from other employees. They must attest employees are in good standing if those employees are licensed, and they must be accompanied by a licensed employee anytime they are in a restricted area. One of the foundation for the reason that we are proposing this amendment to our emergency amendment to our regulations is that our regulation approach and scheme overall did not contemplate startup operations and the need for mass hiring and training. It is evident that if PCP, I think that's a drug, PPC is not able to use experienced personnel to train, it will result in hardship to the operation. The proposal maintains the regulatory scheme and provides PCP the flexibility they need to get ready to open. And I'm sure Attorney Grossman might as well have a comment or two.
I could, but I don't know if I have too much to add. Though I think that sums it up. Essentially, there is just this class of individuals who you'd be saying do not have to be licensed or registered because they're just there to train other people.
I understand the scope of the regulation. I think when we look back on some of the early discussions we had about training entities, we recognize from other jurisdictions that each licensee, to a degree, likes to do some of their own training to incorporate new employees to the way, to the Penn way or to the MGM way or to the WIN way, and, fully would have expected folks to come in from out of town. And I think this is a great solution to, as Director Day says, keep to our regulatory commitments, but at the same time give our licensee the flexibility to train people. And we know there's a huge dose of training coming between now and opening day on June 24th. So makes sense.
Thank you, Commissioner Stebbins. I also add that it is time restricted. It basically is for a 60-day period, and then it would be over, and it's not renewable.
Right.
Who on our staff will be sort of tracking that? I mean, just whose job is it to make sure, for example, when the 60 days are up, do we?
They'll also have to have a separate badge, and,
Right.
and Penn is going to go with a different color, so that'll actually be evident from just walking by. So it'll be our regulatory staff, our agents that are on site.
Okay. All right, any discussion, questions?
So we need to promulgate this by emergency,
Yes, we do.
and at the same time, regular promulgation, or given the temporary nature of this, will be done with a...
At the same time, the regular process, and
Okay.
what we'll, as this moves forward, we'll look at how it comes out in the end, and we may have to come back to the commission for some tweaks to prepare it for the future use by the casinos.
Fair enough. I'll be happy to move, Mr. Chairman, that we adopt on an emergency basis the proposed regulation submitted in the packet 205 CMR 134, licensing and registration of employees, vendors, junket and representatives, and labor organizations, as amended by subsections 13403, 1 and 2, as presented here in the packet today. And at the same time, move that these promulgations, that this regulation be started in the normal promulgation process.
Second?
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it unanimously.
Thank you, Todd.
Good job, Todd.
Mr. Chairman, that gets us to tab C, and Doug O'Donnell is here to present two requests from Suffolk Downs. One is a request for capital improvement trust fund monies, and the second is a request for promotional fund money. And I wasn't ignoring Dr. Lightbaum. As she comes up, following Doug, she will be asking the commission to cancel and add some race days.
Okay.
Doug's going to talk to you about the capital improvement and promotional funds request from Suffolk Downs. And as you guys have had some of these come before you, this one, we don't have enough money to completely pay it off. And Doug will get into the financial details. But one thing we were wondering was if you were comfortable with it, approving payment as the money comes in of the rest of it, so we wouldn't have to come before you each time a chunk of money came in to pay it off. I did get a chance to talk to Derek about it, and he said he agreed that was okay. I'm not sure legally what Catherine might have any comments on that.
Basically, Alex, what it would be is it's the same request which has been previously approved.
Right.
It's just the actually dispensing.
Correct.
Disbursement rather than dispensing.
Yes. Yes, disbursement. So I'll let
This
Doug-
is one of these funds that they give us the money and then we give it back to them, right?
Correct. Yes.
Essentially, yes.
Both of them are.
Both of them are. Right. So I'll let Doug go ahead and describe the.
Good afternoon,
financial
Commissioners.
details.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
As Alex just mentioned, we have two memorandums in front of you, both pertaining to Suffolk Downs, with their promotional trust fund and a capital improvement trust fund. The first one being the capital improvement trust fund. The original request for consideration, which was submitted by Suffolk Downs and approved by Dixon Salo, the architectural firm, was for $4 million. To date, we have reimbursed $3 million and change, which will leave a balance of the project of $923,000. And the monies in the Capital Improvement Trust Fund as of May 4th was $325,754.35, which is what the request for reimbursement is. So what we essentially have been doing is, when that money builds up, they will in turn request reimbursement, and that's when we come to the commission. If we were to avoid that one extra piece, as Alex had mentioned, we could basically approve it, because the monies have already been paid for. This has been paid in full, the $4 million. So it's a matter of building up money in that capital improvement trust fund to disperse it to the tracks. We have a stack of paperwork for this particular project that's probably a foot thick. So what we're doing today, we will need your approval to reimburse that money to Suffolk Downs for this capital improvement trust fund.
Now, remind me, the money that comes to this fund ultimately lags in time, right? There's, it comes out of activity that has already also taken place.
Correct.
To some degree.
The monies that go into the CAP fund are from the breaks, the simulcast breaks and live racing.
Right.
So as that money builds, when they pay their bills to the commission, that money is allocated for this capital improvement trust fund.
Right.
And as that builds up, we will then disperse it when there's a sizable amount.
But if there is, let's say, very few racing days this next coming year, would that affect the monies that ultimately come into this? Not really.
Very minimal. Live
Okay.
racing does not have a
Okay.
huge impact on the amount of money
Yeah,
that goes into
it's
these
mostly
funds.
simulcasting.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
And Doug, just so I'm clear, so I'm not sure how long it took us to accumulate the 325,000 requests there, but do you see two more similar requests to essentially get, we're approved today, we have, we're a third of the way there, and we make 2 more payments of roughly about the same amount of money?
Yes, on the average, you're looking at monies in this cap fund on an annual basis between $750,000 and $900,000, in or around there.
Okay.
So once this money,
That's when you were having racing, though.
no, that's
Oh, it's
includes
simulcast, which has
simulcasting.
been
It's based on the
continued,
handle.
Yeah, right.
It's based on the handle, so yes, once this 325 is dispersed, that will give us a balance of $597,000 to fulfill the contract. And once that's paid off, that contract will be done.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
If we went along with the suggestion to delegate out, on the one sense, it seems obvious, but what would be the check and balance on that? Who, you would receive, the two of you, one of you would receive the request, and if you thought this was appropriate, you'd have to run that by Derek? So
Yes.
there would be at least 2 different parties involved in authorizing a check.
Yeah, I think there's availability of money, that's the check. The other check is what Doug and Alex have already done, which is corroborate that the expenditures have taken place, and indeed they have.
Right.
I think we could delegate to the executive director, who
Yes.
in turn could make sure not only do the numbers work on the racing side, but
But the
that
money's
our
there.
CFAO is in agreement.
Yeah.
I think that makes more, it's fine, it makes all the sense in the world, but, those are pretty good-sized checks to be writing, and we want to make sure that there's, more than one person who's checking just for the appearances, if nothing else.
And with each project, whether it's a cap fund or a promo fund, all invoices and checks are submitted to us, so we know the monies have been paid and the checks have cleared, so we know that it's been paid in full.
Right.
Prior
But-
to us
right.
dispersing any
But that's
money.
already even happened, so that, I'm really thinking about writing checks to somebody, when we write a check to somebody for $320,000, we want to make sure that it's going to the right person. So I think Commissioner Cameron's idea is a good idea. Make the delegation to the executive director, and he can handle it however he wishes.
We also have on here another memorandum regarding the promotional trust fund. And it's basically the same situation. The original request for consideration was $475,000. To date, they've been reimbursed $207,000, leaving a balance on the project of $267,000. And as of 5/4/15, there was approximately $88,000 in the trust account. So again, it will take another 2 or 3 requests for reimbursements to fulfill this particular project and have it closed out.
Okay? Any more questions or anything?
So can we reference the project number in the votes here to make sure that we're talking about these particular projects?
Yeah, both for purposes of these payments
purposes
and for the delegation.
delegation.
Yeah. Do you want to make that motion?
Sure. I'll move, Mr. Chairman, that the commission approve the current requests and delegate to Director Day subsequent requests for disbursements from the Capital Improvement Trust Fund monies for project SCI 2012-2, request from Suffolk Downs, as presented and discussed here today. And I would further move that the commission approve the current request from Suffolk Downs for promotional trust fund monies, project SPT 2010-1, as presented here today, and further delegate to Director Day subsequent requests, approval of subsequent requests for this project as presented here today.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it unanimously. What's next?
Thank you, Commissioners. That gets us to the racing days.
So Plainridge Park has requested canceling Monday, June 22nd, and Wednesday, June 24th, due to the casino opening, obviously, the soft opening and then the regular opening. And would like to reschedule those on Sunday, June 21st, and Tuesday, June 23rd, They've also asked to reschedule the 6 days that we canceled at the beginning of the meet due to the severe winter weather that we had and giving the horses more time to get ready to race. And they're proposing to race those races on alternating Tuesdays, beginning in September. So it's September 8th and 22nd, October 6th and 20th, and then November 3rd and 17th. I don't know if Steve O'Toole's here, if he has anything to add.
Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
So Alex pretty much laid it all out. The only thing I would point out that in Alex's recommendation that the Sunday before the controlled demonstration at Plainridge would be post-time 1 o'clock. So we'll continue with our Sundays at 1. And then moving back from the casino opening on Wednesday, the 24th, we're going on the 23rd, that'll be at 4 o'clock, our usual afternoon post time. But the cancellation request earlier, a few months ago, helped out the horsemen very much, and the fields have been decent sized. And it looks like in the proposed dates, the alternating Tuesdays gives a 3-day-a-week schedule, and then followed up by a 4-day schedule, then a 3-day schedule. So if there is a problem with filling cards, I think it'll be alleviated by the every other week adding the extra day. So it kind of worked out pretty well.
And I see that the Harness Horsemen's Association has been consulted and agree with
Yes.
these changes.
Yes, whenever we do dates like that, usually take in their consideration, although this particular year, they were so grateful to have those early dates canceled that was pretty much whatever you think. But as it wound out, and as we worked the schedule, that just seemed to be a nice time to put in the extra days, because there is stake races scheduled, I believe, on those Mondays just before the Tuesdays. So that throws some extra horses in the mix.
I note the new letterhead too. Looks sharp.
Thank you.
I did confirm with the horsemen that they were on board with this also.
I see that. Thank you.
This all makes a lot of sense. I'm just curious if changes to the schedules have an effect on pari-mutuel customers elsewhere.
It does to some effect. The earlier that we can get our changes out, and the simulcasting community does a very good job with group emails and everything, getting the word out and getting the schedules altered, and getting it publicized and everything. But every track does not like to interrupt their continuity and change the schedules. And we try to change our schedules as little as possible. Sometimes, with mandatory dates and with heat and weather and things like that, cancellations do come up. But the added dates are always widely advertised, and simulcast directors do a good job of getting that word out.
Great.
Further discussion? Commissioner Cameron?
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the request by Plainridge Park Casino to change their racing dates to accommodate the opening at Plainridge, as well as the new dates, which would make up for the dates because the weather was not cooperating at the beginning of the race season, so the added dates.
As detailed in
That's
Dr.
the memo
Lightbound's May
dated
12.
May 11th, yes.
Okay. Second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it unanimously.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, that's the last item I have.
All right, now we are to Director Griffin.
Commissioners, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Director?
Before we start, I wanted to introduce to you the Mass Gaming Commission's first intern. This is Corinne Reynolds. She's a recent grad of Michigan State University, and she'll be supporting the work of the Access and Opportunity Committee.
Go Spartans.
Well,
Welcome.
So, you'll remember that in December of last year, the commission voted to establish an Access and Opportunity Committee. This was a new initiative developed to support the commission's ongoing commitment to achieve diversity within this new expanded gaming industry. And the committee's primary function is to monitor diversity in the construction, workforce, and supplier base of these licensees, and also to make related recommendations to the commissions and the licensees around diversity. I'm joined today by Ron Marlowe, Chair of the Mass Gaming Access and Opportunity Committee. And you may know that he is the new Undersecretary of the Executive Office of Labor and Workforce Development and the former Assistant Secretary for Access and Opportunity at the Executive Office of Administration and Finance. And he's been a longtime friend to the Commission regarding issues of diversity and has been generous in his time advising the Commission regarding diversity. So we're here today to provide you an update on the activities since that December 4th meeting. I'm going to just briefly speak about the establishment of the committee and then turn the mic over to Ron to give you some of the meeting highlights and talk more broadly. So, the commission invited 10 individuals with expertise in labor, workforce development, and supplier diversity to join the statewide committee, including representatives from the Commonwealth's Office of Supplier Diversity, the Executive Office of Labor and Workforce Development, the Policy Group on Trades Women's Issues, the New England Regional Council of Carpenters, and the State Office of Veterans Affairs. We've established 2 regional subcommittees that include each licensee for the full resort casinos, the local unions, community organizing groups like the Pioneer Valley Project, One Everett, and the Black Economic Justice Institute, as well as community nonprofits like the Urban League, the Mass Minority Contractors Association, and the Latino Chamber of Commerce. The meetings alternate between Region A and Region B, and we use technology to ensure participation. So on Tuesday, we had our second meeting of the committee, and it was held at the UMass Center in Springfield. 2 commissioners, Commissioner Stebbins and Commissioner Zuniga, participated, and thank you for that. But now I'm going to turn the mic over to Ron and ask him to add some perspective.
Thank you, Jill. Good afternoon, Commissioners.
Good afternoon.
Ron.
First of all, let me say thank you for being willing to move the agenda around so that I could get here and participate. Secondly, let me say, Chairman Crosby, I thought we were good friends until you uttered "Go Spartans," knowing that I am a Nittany Lion, but that is quite all right. But more importantly, let me say thank you to the commissioners in the commission for establishing an Access and Opportunity Committee. An Access and Opportunity Committee is not a new idea, but it is an idea that was resurrected in the last executive administration as a means for understanding and driving towards collective goals around diversity and inclusion. Clearly, Director Griffin, in bringing that idea before the commission and the commission embracing it, recognized that there is some value not only in helping facilitate achieving our diversity and inclusion goals, but more importantly, in aiding in the transparency around our efforts to get to those goals. And even more important than that, creating a space in which individuals and organizations who are typically on opposite sides or feel like they're on opposite sides of an issue in a tug and pull battle to try to get a project done, but to try to do it as inclusively as possible, the AOC gives an opportunity for those folks to come together, to establish relationships, to work together and to strive in common objective to reach and attain our goals. As Director Griffin mentioned, there has been 2 meetings already. The first one, primarily organizational, but well-attended, gave both of the licensees, MGM Springfield and Wynn Everett, an opportunity to introduce their teams to the committee. It gave them an opportunity to start to sketch out, if you will, the diversity and inclusion objectives that were contained and have been embedded in their application and now their license. And more importantly, or equally important, it gave Wynn and MGM an opportunity to meet those individuals and those organizations who will be their colleagues in this effort. And by colleagues, what I mean is this. Will there be pushes and nudges to ensure that the licensees achieve and exceed their goals? Yes. But more importantly, and I think this was evidenced in Tuesday's meeting, in which we know already that MGM has already reached out to the PGTI group to start to talk about ways in which they can work together to recruit more women into the trades so that we can achieve the goals not only on the project, but on other projects that take place in Springfield, Boston, and in between. That is part of what the AOC is all about, is developing those partnerships and relationships, again, in common pursuit of goals and objectives. I think we are off to a very terrific start, keeping in mind that both projects are in very early stages, and there is always an anxiety around what the numbers say. Sometimes that anxiety precedes actual activity, but it is a good way of ensuring that the licensees know that not only are their efforts being watched by the commission, not only are their efforts being watched by Director Griffin, but their efforts are being watched by communities written large in both the greater Boston community as expressed in Everett and the greater Springfield community in downtown Springfield. But again, that this is not adversarial, it's in partnership. And so, again, I would say thank you to the commission for having both the foresight and the courage. As you know, this is a brand new experiment in Massachusetts, and anytime you introduce an element that wasn't on the table at the very beginning, there can be some nerves frayed, but the courage that you've displayed in creating an additional tool, and that's what the AOC is, a tool in reaching our collective objectives around diversity and inclusion. Again, thank you to the commission for doing that, and I say thank you for giving me the opportunity to lend time and effort in chairing the AOC. My goal is to make sure that voices are heard, objectives are achieved, and that the commission is done proud by the work of the AOC. And I'll stop there.
Thank you, Ron.
Well, I want to say thank you. You keep thanking us, but we should be thanking you over and over. I saw you in action on Tuesday updating a group of multiple perspectives, a lot of expectations, some update that is not quite what they wish they had, because the projects are at early stages, but doing a great job at that. And one of my takeaways is, even though it's early, it's great that we have this, and that it's critical that we stick to this. Try to avoid canceling, postponing, any of these meetings, because the trend, the behavior and the relationship over time will hopefully also, go a long way in achieving all those goals that you described.
Now, Commissioner, thank you. And again, I said this at the first meeting. I do believe Director Griffin is a Yoda disciple, because she can get you to do things you would not normally do, and I would not normally drive to Springfield
master,
in the middle of
yes.
the day. But thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
I would just echo Commissioner Zuniga. We're thankful that this administration saw the wisdom in engaging Ron in his new capacity, and we're also grateful for the time that he is giving us in chairing the AOC. It was a good meeting. It was active participation by everyone. These are open meetings, so anybody, even if they're not on the committee, is invited to attend and participate. And Ron did a great job at allowing anybody who was there who was not a member of the committee to weigh in. We think that's important. And I was impressed by some of the activities of our licensees. As it's been pointed out, it's still very early on in the process, but MGM is boiling down the numbers to, you know, the firm they hired to erect the fence, to track diversity even in some of these very early contracts that they're awarding. And then we hear stories of, you know, WIN representatives going around to laundromats in Everett to post posters, you know, targeted to women and minority and veterans to think about a career in construction and taking advantage of these two big projects as a way to jumpstart a new career, a new opportunity for them. So great work. Ron runs a great meeting. I find that if you've been to Penn State, driven by Penn State, thought of Penn State, you're in good graces with Ron during the meeting. So it was good.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Secretary Marlowe, I want to thank you as well for this good work. And I just had a question really off topic. This is great work in construction and in gaming. I just wondered if there's any work being done around public safety in the Commonwealth to increase numbers and be more inclusive.
That's a good question. I'll go back to my colleagues and come up with an answer and get that back to you directly.
Great.
So thank you.
Civil service needs to be looked at, a couple of other things. So I just wondered if anything was being done here.
I can tell you this, broadly speaking, Governor Baker is even more laser focused than Governor Patrick was on questions of diversity and inclusion. It is something that he is holding secretaries responsible for. And so while I don't know the specifics in the public safety realm, I'm pretty confident that as we look up, his goal is to increase the diversity within the executive branch so that it even better reflects the diversity of the Commonwealth. And so I couldn't give you specifics. Take that as a general concept that drives us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ron, how was the attendance at this meeting? That's one of the proofs of the pudding.
Yeah. Well, I will tell you, I was actually at the Urban League of Eastern Mass yesterday, and I teased Darnell Williams to say, Darnell, I'm not quite sure how you missed the Boston meeting, but made it out to Springfield, so it must be something about Springfield. I was very surprised. I believe there were 28 or so individuals in the room, many of them who traveled from Boston and bore the traffic of 128, because once you get to the Pike, it's smooth sailing. And so it was very well attended, and I think that is a testament to the work you've done, the commission, in terms of highlighting the importance of diversity and inclusion. I think it's a testament to the work that Jill has done in recruiting individuals who are committed to rolling up their sleeves and working in partnership. Anyone can throw stones. It takes a little bit more to do partnership, and so it's very well attended.
Great.
If it wasn't for the fact that we had a slightly bigger room than we did for the first meeting, it would have been exactly like the first meeting.
You know, you made a point, but just to reinforce it, and I know you said that sometimes at the outset of these things there's a little anxiety because is this all going to be about finger pointing, and it's important to make clear to our licensees, and they will learn, I hope, with experience, that this is a tool, as you said. This is a way to help. There was an extraordinary story when the folks at Plainridge were having a hard time meeting their objectives for women, and rather than being in the construction process, and rather than being defensive about it, rather than trying to explain away the numbers or hide the numbers, they reached out to our effective AOC and said, can you help us? How do we do this better? That's what's supposed to be happening here. So if we can keep that tone, that this is about being honest, assume the commitment of good faith, and roll up our sleeves and work together to make it happen. This is really great. And I second everybody else's endorsement of Secretary Marlowe.
So just do me one favor. Next time you say "Go Spartans," followed up with "Go Nittany Lions."
All right. I'm actually for the Iowa Hawkeyes. Don't get me wrong. I was just speaking about. I just like the Big Ten. Anybody in the Big Ten.
All right, go Big Ten.
Next time it'll be Go Hawkeyes.
Thank you, commissioners.
All right. See you later.
Commissioners,
Thank you.
Could I just close by saying that the next meeting, the meetings take place the second Tuesday of every month, and we'll be meeting at the Carpenters Union in Dorchester in June. So
If you haven't been to that building, it's worth going just to see that building.
Beautiful green building, yes.
Thank you.
Before you leave, I saw some emails. I see Liz sitting back here. I saw some emails going back and forth about some award by some woman construction worker or something. What was that? Did that have anything to do with us or What was that
No,
about?
this is a national organization and a resource that Liz Skidmore has alerted us to that highlights women in the construction trades. And every Tuesday, they highlight a woman in the trades. And it's something that the local community and in Massachusetts and Greater Boston, we're talking about doing something like that locally.
Huh.
So,
Great,
yeah.
that's good.
Thank you, Commissioner.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, sir.
Is that it? Director Day, I think we have covered everything. Is there anything else, anybody? All right. Thank you all very much. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you.
Great work.